and I am Carla Leon. I'm with the EDGE Network, a network of ministry development, and head of innovation, so embracing the spirit and working with communities of faith that are starting to think really differently, and hoping for new ways to inspire that and to work with you. And then joining with me today is both John and Randy.
So I'm John Neff, and I am the Congregational Support and Mission Minister in Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council. I'm not sure where everyone's from, so Southern Ontario. And I'm also sort of taking a lead on getting some of the tech stuff around online meetings or live streaming and things like that within both Antler River watershed, Horseshoe Falls, and my own region.
And we thank you for that good work. Thank you, John. And this was John's idea, knowing that this was something that people were asking for. So I applaud that initiative. Randy.
Hi, I'm Randy Boyd. I'm the National Facilitator of the Rural Connect program, which is a program that we're just starting to use technology to support rural congregations in ministry. And while the focus of Rural Connect are smaller rural churches, the use of technology and the learnings there are something that are of value to city churches as well. And so I'm here to share some of how we're using technology and some of the insights that we've gained.
Thank you, Randy. And I'd love it if you actually could put in the Rural Connect URL into the chat box for everyone if they want to check it out.
Okay.
And Carla, I wonder if we might encourage everybody to write their name and their community of faith in the chat box. And if your community of faith is like Trinity or St. John's, please also give geographical location.
Great idea. It's so wonderful to see that we have people across the country here today. Nova Scotia to London to Camrose, Victoria, Calgary. Great. Well, welcome everyone. And I think that when we see all these faces and we see the words in the chat, we know that we are not alone. So why did this come about? And I know John could give some insight too. He had lots of questions, but really over the last 6 months, we did something we didn't think that was possible. We all moved online. Oh my goodness. And you know, when I think about my own pew that I sit in every single Sunday and now going online, it's a whole new world. And many of us thought it wasn't possible. And yet, you know what? We were wrong. Much more is possible than we thought was. And at this point now we're starting to think about reopening. And I know there's been lots of webinars about reopening and some practices on that Stephen Fetter has been running. But there's this other idea that, you know what, when we go back into the pews, when we go back into our churches and the doors are open again, you know what, this new community that was online and maybe people who actually never would have stepped into the doors before of a church, they actually showed up online. In fact, we're seeing an increase of Sunday attendance of 25% in some areas, and some areas even higher. And so this idea of that when we go back into the church, well, how do we handle this live streaming, or how do we actually continue to still offer this? And so this is why we wanted to offer today's conversation about that. John, did you want to add anything before we start jumping into what the tech might look like?
Maybe that, I guess there's two different things we're talking about. And one is, which we'll get into more technically, but one is basic live streaming and how a church can get up and running live streaming. And the other is with the Rural Connect, we're talking about live participatory services through a hub church. And so we'll learn more about that too as we get further into this presentation.
Great. So what we realize is that everyone's in different places, and so there might be kind of like with Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you kind of have like the beginner, you got the middle, and you kind of have the more advanced. And so what John ended up researching for us was this great outline of all the different options there, and then Randy's going to end with Rural Connect. So I'm just going to share my screen and let John start walking through.
Right. So in my region, but also I know that these questions are being asked across the country, is if we're not currently live streaming, what do we need to be able to live stream? And if we want to test it without making a really big commitment, how do we do that? So we're talking about some ideas about basic streaming, and we have an outline here. There's a few things to consider. One is, I see we have computer there. Your live streaming could be as simple as a cell phone, hopefully on a tripod so it's not shaking all over the place and making it very difficult to watch. But it can be done with a basic computer as well, connecting both a microphone and so sound and video through either the computer or adding things to it. One thing to consider always when you're live streaming is your copyright licensing stuff. And that is, again, the costs depend on the size of your congregation. If you're live streaming to a platform like YouTube or Facebook, then you also need to consider the podcast license in addition to the basic music license, which covers you for streaming and for archived stuff. So a basic amount in using a cell phone and or if you do a laptop, again, prices can vary somewhat, but we're talking maybe $1,400. That's would be your basic, and it depends on the equipment that you need or that you might already have, and so on. This doesn't include necessarily anything like cables or those kinds of things. So the incidental fees might increase it a little bit, but again, you might already have a bunch of equipment you can use. You just have to learn how to tap into it. So basic streaming doesn't have to be really expensive. If you want to get into more higher tech stuff, we'll go to an intermediate thing. And again, it totally depends upon the kinds of equipment you want to get and how elaborate you want to make it. So this is a breakdown which gives a bunch of different options. You basically need a computer, a microphone, or a connection to your soundboard, something that will pick up in the area but not pick up all the static or background noise. You need a sound capture card. You need a camera, and there's different options on the camera and the cables that are available. You need some kind of live streaming software if you're going to do it this way. There is a free version, the OBS Studio, though I understand that it can be a little challenging to get used to and work with, but some have worked with it for a while and they find it excellent. There's also ones you can pay per month, and they're probably a little easier to use, but again, you're paying for it. So if you want to test the waters, go with the free version. Copyright licenses are also involved there, and you also need to be connected, preferably hardwired, to a local company, or we can look into things like a Bell or Rogers hotspot, so a ZTE box, which gives you direct connection. Then you're paying for the box and you're paying for the subscription. Or a local company, you'd be paying for the subscription anyway, if you're hardwired within your church. So those are the basic and the intermediate type options. That information's available now already, Carla, I think.
Yep, I'm going to post that document into the chat so you guys can all access it, and we're also posting it online. So is amazing research that John has done to make affordable options. So only $1,400 for the basics, but obviously some ranges in there. $2,500 for something that really focuses more on some of the software and better audio quality, which we know audio is so important. And then at this point, we're going to invite Randy to talk about Rural Connect and what that looks like.
Sure. I just wondered, are there any questions first for John? I think I saw a couple questions in the chat that he might want to address right now.
Oh, maybe whoever, can you unmute? Can people unmute themselves? Unmute themselves. I just opened that option. So if you have a question, it might be easier if you can put up your hand by one of the options in, if you open your participants window by clicking on the bottom participants, you should have some options around raising your hand, or are those restricted, Carla? I'm not sure. There we go, Joanne. So Joanne, we'll unmute you and go ahead and ask your question.
So my question is around copyright, which is based on congregation size. So when you initially subscribe, is that based on, say, statistics for the UCC stat book, like from last year? Because numbers have kind of varied. They've kind of obviously for in-person decreased to 0, but for online, it's not always exactly what you had based on varying access to technology. And sometimes your numbers are inflated because you have people sort of tuning in from all over the place.
That's a good question. Randy, you might know some about this too, but my understanding of the copyright is it's not based on your online presence, it's based on your physical presence. So if you have a church that has a membership list of 150, then go by that number.
Great, thank you.
Is it membership or is it attendance? I always thought it was attendance.
I don't know, we can clarify that with CCLI. If it's attendance, that could fluctuate. So you never know if you're in the right category or not. If it came right down to it, I think the argument might be made for a membership. But okay, we can double check that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Marilyn?
Hi, you didn't mention the software that's running your service. We have Easyworship as our software. Is it interactive when you live stream? Like, could you flip back and forth? And the second to that question is copyright for the music part of it already covered in Easyworship? Or maybe you're going to cover this later. I'm not sure.
Good questions. I'm not.
I don't believe Easyworship covers copyright.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that. I'm not familiar with the Easyworship platform, but
yeah, that's a software platform like ProPresenter, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So what it does is it provides your lyrics for the hymns, for graphics, that kind of thing. I'm not 100% sure if it will run in the background of the laptop that you're doing the streaming on. I suspect not. And even if it did, it would have to be a pretty powerful computer to be running the two programs at the same time. So normally what you would do is you would have Easyworship or ProPresenter or Media Shout on a separate laptop, and you take that as one input. And you can, even if your software like OBS allows it, you can overlay it on top of the visuals. And so some of them have keying ability, some of them don't. If you don't have a keying ability, or if you don't have an alpha channel on the software, which is all sort of technical stuff, what you can do is you can do your background in green, and then when you bring it in as an input, you key out the green and it'll leave what's behind it. But then you have to figure out a way to bring in the other computer into your OBS. And one of the ways, I believe OBS has something called NDI compatibility, which means you can transfer video data over your network. And so you would need on the laptop that has Media Shout, you would need a little free program called Ndi Scan Converter. And what it does is it takes your laptop and makes it accessible to OBS as an input, as long as it's on the network, which means you don't have to have some capture cards, that kind of thing. So that's how I would do that.
So let me try and clarify what I heard in that, because I'm sure you might have questions around that too. So it's possible to have a program like you have. I'm used to Media Shout, so I forget the name of the other one that you said. But
ProPresenter.
Easyworship. It was called Easyworship.
Easyworship, right. So it's possible to overlay that, but you need to make sure that the program that you're using to do the live streaming allows for that. That's one option. Or there can be a more technical fix, which Randy was talking about, that I don't know anything about.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, what you want to be doing is taking a look at the software you choose to use to do your streaming. So for example, if you're going to do Wirecast or OBS, which are free programs. No, sorry, Wirecast isn't. If OBS is a free program, you want to look at what kind of functions does it have to allow you to bring an external source in. And it may be built in to OBS. It's a pretty full function program.
And I see.
What program does Thunder Bay use that they can show what's on the screen at the same time as their stream?
Well, that's built into our switcher.
Okay.
So we just make, we put something on the network. I can put an iPad on the network, for example, and it will be picked up as one of the TriCaster inputs.
Okay.
We also have another laptop that runs a dedicated graphics program that's put into the network, and we have a separate person on the computer, and when it comes to lyrics for the hymns, they hit the different lyrics. If it comes to lower thirds, they put the lower third and said, this is who's doing what, and any other kind of graphic you need. And so it's sort of a separate thing run by a separate person.
Okay, so
and that's called New Blue Titler, but it's an expensive program. Just
for you folks who are here, that's part of what a hub church in the Rural Connect with a hub and satellite churches, the hub church would have that capability to do different types of things, which is a little more complicated than just live streaming.
Which is our advanced that we're about to get to.
Yeah.
So we have the basics that we covered. We had a little bit more like the intermediate with all the sound being the main differential. I see two hands here. We have Norm and John.
Let's go to Norm.
Norm.
I'm asking to unmute Norm, but it's not working for me at the moment. Oh, maybe it is.
I got unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep, thanks.
All right, it's a Verizon commercial. So just to answer Marilyn's question, Easyworship does allow for live streaming integration. And our tech team is sort of looking into that. The second thing I wanted to comment on is the issue of copyright. What we discovered is that CCLI doesn't cover some music, like it covers some music and doesn't cover other music. So we actually have had to go to 2 licenses. We have 1 license as well as CCLI. So if you're thinking about copyright, you need to make sure that CCLI covers whatever material you do. You just can't assume that your music is covered by that particular license.
Thank you for that, Norm.
Yep.
And John.
And there's also public domain. There's also
Right.
public domain music too.
Yep.
If you're traditional enough of a congregation, you can have some of the music is already there and you don't have to worry about copyright.
And John.
Yes, we use Easyworship, and I think the easiest way to do it is we're just going to point the camera at the screen where we're projecting Easyworship No technical difficulties there. At Prairie Spirit, we also have 2 music licenses so that we can cover everything.
Carla, we should probably put that in our notes for the thing that just around the copyright. 1 license might also be needed.
And see, that's why we said we're all a bunch of inexperts, and I'm so grateful that everyone is here to share. I see Lynn and Norm's hand are up. I would love to get Randy to talk about Rural Connect. Is this something that could be as an overall best practice at the end, or Norm or Lynn? Does it make sense now?
Just a quick thing on YouTube. Most of you may have experienced this already, but sometimes you will get a copyright claim even though it's public domain, and that's just because there are people out there who are trying to make money off of old hymns and stuff like that, and there are ways of resolving that with YouTube, but not to freak out like I did the first time I saw it. That's all.
Now, if there is a copyright thing, it can shut you down in your live stream immediately. Is that correct? Or
I haven't had that, but what it is there are 2 levels. There's the copyright claim, which allows you to continue doing whatever you're doing, but you cannot monetize your YouTube video.
right? Okay.
And that's like some guy in the Czech Republic has decided that he wants to make money off "Oh Sacred Head Now Wounded," and you can challenge it, and it takes about a month to do. And sometimes they won't return the challenge, and sometimes they will continue challenging it. It doesn't really affect you unless you want to make money off your video.
Right.
And then there's the real copyright, the sort of big copyright claim where a major publisher is saying that you used the material illegally, but if you have a license, you don't have that problem. But that doesn't usually happen with public domain stuff.
I see Lynn has taken her hand down. So shall we go to Randy for now? We'll do that presentation and then open up the questions again.
Great, that'd be wonderful. Okay, Randy, let's see this advanced version.
Well, so what, as I mentioned to Carla before we started, I ended up having to take down all my streaming stuff for this person to get into the corner of the house that I have that all in. But I can describe what's going on, and I can refer you again to the Rural Connect website, which has pictures and examples and all that kind of stuff as well. So like everyone, you start small, and we started with a camera hooked into a laptop, streaming to a free service, and you sort of get the realization that there's a congregation out there that you don't realize is out there. You get the realization that there are people stuck at home who would like to come to church who can't make it. And one of the things we're going to find, I think, in the fall is that even though we start reopening churches, we're going to have a substantial part of our congregations who are going to say, I don't know if I'm ready yet, you know. And so we really do, I think, wisely look at combining in-person worship, but continuing our streaming, because that's going to be affecting providing a worship to a part of our congregations that are still vulnerable and uneasy about going back too soon. So again, what we started with was a camera and a laptop, and then you relatively quickly get to the realization that that's sort of a talking head static shot for an hour is not something that we're very good at maintaining our attention to. So it's not surprising if you watch the CBC nightly news, they probably have 3 to 5 seconds before they shoot to a different angle to keep your interest, to keep engagement. So when you go to step up from the basic or even the intermediate, what you're going to want to do is take a look at multiple cameras so that you can shoot between different angles of shots. We have 2 at the back on different angles, and then 1 at the front to be able to catch the congregation or things that are happening up front. You want to worry about making sure that the sound is good. We tend to think that the big challenge in all of this is video. The big challenge in this is audio. People will put up with grainy video. They get really tired and grumpy if they can't hear well. And so you want to pay attention to how you can integrate the audio from your service, whether it be, well, we don't have choirs now, but if you have a soloist or if you have other elements of the service, you want the sound to be coming in clearly. And similarly with video, you want to have enough light, surprisingly enough. So you might need to do some supplemental stuff about light. Now, when you start getting to multiple cameras, you need to have some equipment that allows you to shift between those cameras. And then some exciting stuff happens. So the Rural Connect technology that we have is really a combination of streaming, or video conferencing, and broadcast technologies. And so we have a box called a TriCaster. It tends to be pretty expensive. You can get a more affordable version of software to do the same thing called Vmix. And Vmix is a full production switcher, which allows you to bring in different inputs. So you could have 3 cameras. You say, go to that camera, and it fades into that camera. You say, go to this camera, it fades into that camera. You say, go to the visuals are superimposed on top of the video that's there. You can add value-added things like lower thirds, which allow you to sort of put in, here's the element of the service, and here's who's doing this and from where. You also have the ability to bring in video clips seamlessly. So it's time to shift to a clip of some opening for the sermon. You just fade into it, it plays, then it comes back to the person who's doing the preaching. So we've developed some technology, and one of the things we found is that people in the pews get really scared about technology. They sort of think that they make an assumption that they can't do it. We found that in different places, you have different technical abilities, but you also have different technical setups. So you might have some places that that have really good internet. You might have some places that have really poor internet. You might have places that have a good sound system. You might have places with a bad sound system. You might have networks that are really, the person who put it together, you don't know anymore. They don't know what the password is, that kind of thing. So what we needed to do for our project was create a box, basically, that has all the equipment you need, and it's all configured and ready to go, and you plug it in and you're set. And to take out the variable of the bandwidth, we put in cellular hotspots, and we can use that instead. And so you have a strong signal. The box includes a sound system with microphones. It includes a data projector or an input to put it into a TV. And so it has everything you need to be part of the Rural Connect project, but then also the hub that you connect to can stream service. And so, we have a fully interactive service where, the call to worship may come from one place, and the scripture readings come from a place that's 8 hours away, and the sermon comes from one church, and it's all put together like that. But then that's all streamed out as well. And so some of the boxes we're putting together are going to include some basic streaming things as well. So you can just stream from the box as well. So again, I mean, if you want to take a look at what's involved in the box, what's involved in a hub, and if you sort of think that you might be interested in becoming a hub, or you have a congregation that might want to try out one of these boxes, let me know. And I'll put my email in the chat as well. Was there any more? I don't want to talk too much about it, but I certainly would answer questions, or if there are questions about what we've learned and what we're doing that would help with streaming, let me know.
If I may just add a couple of comments to that. There was a group of us from Northern Waters Presbytery and Living Waters Presbytery, when they existed, that went to Thunder Bay and did some research around the project that was done there, to which Randy's referring as the initial hub church that happened. And there were some interesting findings where to use the hub technology, and you being either a hub or probably a satellite church, that the understanding of community broadened, that who we are as a United Church of Canada meant that we connected not only with our own small community of faith, but on Sundays we could also connect with a larger group of communities of faith. And it gave a broader sense of that within the individual churches, that we're bigger than ourselves, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, an example of that, just quickly, is one of the partners that we had is a rural church outside of Thunder Bay, and they always have a fall supper. And so it got to the point where the fall supper would come, and there'd be a whack of Trinity people at the fall supper, and they noticed that, and they appreciated the support from beyond their walls and their givers. But it got to the point where we had somebody who had knee surgery, and he was in the summer, and he set his goal that he wanted to be up and walking by the time the Pine Grove Fall Supper happened, so that he could go. And so again, you sort of have this sense of people are connecting to other people's programs, other people in those congregations, and they become meaningful connections.
It's also an area where if you have a shared ministry agreement or a collaborative agreement amongst a bunch of churches, one of those could be a hub church. And then the shared ministry could be, you could have one minister amongst, let's say, 5 or even 10 churches if you want. And you would see the same minister all the time, because that minister could preach from different pulpits, but you're all seeing the same broadcast and you're all participating. So it brings a whole different dynamic to a shared ministry agreement with other churches.
One of the things we also found in terms of streaming was that when the pandemic hit in Thunder Bay, when it hit in Thunder Bay, we were able to instantly shift over to an online service for all the congregations in the city. And it wasn't just one place. We would have one person at St. Paul's doing the scripture readings and one person at Broadway. And so even though it was one service, we still managed to say that this is something that's coming from the city at large. And I think that had an impact as well. And of course, the numbers certainly bore it out, as Carla said at the beginning. Certainly the numbers were higher than any of us had when we would be on our own.
Yeah, and that brings another consideration, that even though you might think about live streaming for your own people, many of the churches who have begun live streaming as a result of the pandemic have realized that their membership, if you will, has grown because people are tapping in from other countries, from other towns, from places that they will never darken your door, but they've become part of your community of faith through the live streaming work, the online presence. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to consider not only your own people, but the people who have become part of your church through that online presence.
Yeah, I got an email from Arkansas, and somebody had picked up the stream from Arkansas. And he was saying that he really appreciated the sermon I had done on white privilege. And he made a comment, he said, "We don't get sermons like that down here very much." And so you realize that, you really are casting a much wider net when you are streaming. And you really can be blown away by the impact that you're having beyond your congregation.
So I'm just looking at the chat, and I'm reading that audio is cutting out for some people, and they wonder if we could turn off our video to save bandwidth. So except for the presenter or whoever's speaking, I wonder if you would be kind enough to turn off your video. And there are some questions around recommending a good computer configuration, what processor or RAM, video card, etc. We could do some research on that and put it in our documentation. I don't have that information off the top of my head. One other thing I would like to mention around the Rural Connect and the possibility of being a satellite church or a hub church is talk to your regional council also around this, because in Western Ontario Waterways, what we're trying to do is encourage the ability for congregations to engage the process without making a big commitment first. So the regional council has committed a certain amount of money to allow for renting boxes and paying for the cellular hotspot, which we can rent to a congregation without them committing to like a year contract or something like that. So we're trying to absorb some of those costs as a regional council to allow churches to try it. And we're even, the first 2 weeks of a trial will be cost-free. And after that, the minimum cost of what the hotspot and or equipment rental would be charged to the congregation. If you look at the Rural Connect information, to engage with a hub church on any given Sunday is less than the cost of pulpit supply. I see a hand from Peter. Oh, sorry, Randy.
No, it's okay. I'm going to take the question first.
Peter, did you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi guys. My question I also put in the chat box. Has anybody tried doing a multi-faith service using live streaming?
At this point, I do know that Norval United Church in Georgetown is doing some creative live streaming right now with different diverse representation, including multi-faith. So if you're interested in tuning into Norval in the month of September, I know that they have a good lineup of folk.
Can you put that in the chat box, Carla?
It's there. And I did see someone ask if we can save the chat, because I know we've been putting lots of resources in and everyone's throwing in links. To save it, you just go by the chat field at where you would type in your own chat. There's 3 little dots there. So at the end of this call, you can actually click on that and save the entire chat box. That's the top option for you. The other question I'm seeing in chat, I don't know if John, Randy, or we have many experts on this phone call or this Zoom call with us. There was the question of how does Zoom play into all this? And we're using that right now. I don't know if anyone wants to share their story of how they're using Zoom at this point. I know George Bott in St. John's and Marathon is using it quite a bit. If Randy, you want to talk about that a bit?
Sure. I mean, I think I think Zoom is at the basic level of what we're talking about in terms of streaming. There's ways of bringing OBS or your production into the Zoom through a variety of ways. So you can do that. You can sort of hybrid the both things. We're finding that music becomes a real challenge on Zoom. Certainly singing together becomes very problematic. Switching, not elegant. And so there's a lot of sort of moving around and a lot of distraction. So George has done a lot of stuff with it, but George also reached a point where I think he realized that you come up against a wall. You can only do so much with Zoom. And you at some point you want to shift to more of a switching environment. And there are affordable ways of doing that. There's a piece of equipment called an A10 Mini Pro, which is a little box. It's a switcher, so it allows 4 inputs, like a computer, a couple cameras, and it has an ability to stream directly. So you connect this little box to the internet, configure it, and it will stream out without a laptop. And so that might be an option as well to do something. You can also have it go out to a Zoom meeting and become the webcam of the Zoom meeting. So it allows you to do a little bit of the switching and that kind of stuff, and then still have people participating in the Zoom meeting and connecting through Zoom. But again, as people are finding here, the more people you have on, the more the bandwidth becomes an issue and the more people begin to break up and you start having audio issues. But it's certainly for small groups and for a congregation that wants to do something really basic, really simple, really soon, it's an option. I'm just going to go back to one other question that we really didn't answer very much, and that was any recommendations around equipment. And, you know, while we don't have any particular computer to recommend, there are a couple things you want to look at. You do want to have sufficient memory in it. And probably the key is you want a computer that has a distinct graphics card, because that card will take all the graphic processing of a video conference and a video connection and a stream, and take some of that weight. And so when you're look for an AMD or an NVIDIA kind of graphics card in the computer you get. And again, the company that we deal with, Rural Connect, for the boxes, they also have turnkey solutions. So if anyone wants to know about that, let me know and I'll connect you, and they can say, here's a whole configured package for you.
Great. And we have another question in the chat, happened twice actually. Is there any advantages to live streaming compared to uploading a video for viewing? And again, we're going to go to the knowledge of the crowd, because I think everyone's had experience over the last 5 months. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm biased, but I really think that there's something about worshiping when you know that the other person is there and it's live. You know, I think I can still remember the first time we did this, and there's a community about 2.25 hours east of Thunder Bay called Nipigon. And just like in our churches, someone would get up to do the scripture readings, right? You have a lay person get up and do the scripture readings. Well, all of a sudden, a lay person got up in Nipigon and did the scripture readings, and we watched it live. And there was something sort of magical about realizing that this is happening, and this is happening hours away, and yet we're together and we're all a part of that. Now, that said, if you can't live stream, there's certainly advantages to having a YouTube video that's put up and placed. Live streaming has the advantages of both. So when you do the live stream, it goes into an archive, and the archive can be accessed during the week. And one of the things we find is we may have, you know, 500 people on a Sunday morning, but over the course of the week, another 700-800 people will have watched the service as well. So it's just sort of allowing people to pick the time and make it fit their schedule.
Great. I'm seeing some other people chip in there. I see that, Ken, your hand is raised. Did you?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on the live stream versus recording. From the point of view of the people putting things together, I'm Mr. Music at the church, and so for up until now, we have been just recording everything and then posting it late Saturday night for Sunday and beyond. And one of the things about doing that way is you can have as many takes as you want to get it right before you put it up there, so that professionally you have the best possible offering, whether it be spoken word or music, to put up and broadcast to the congregation. Now, what we are planning in the future is a hybrid version of that, and that is doing some recording and some live stream at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that's a wise thing. I mean, music really is the most difficult part, and it's really been interesting to see the incredible things being done by musicians by taping some of the services and some of the combined things where you have people separate but they pull them together. It's a lot of work, But you're right, it's very, very effective. And I know what we've done in Thunder Bay is that we've combined that. You know, we'd have a choir, one church choir will put together a Zoom anthem, and others will do hymns, and then we just roll that in. So we have live elements that go to taped elements that all get recorded and streamed.
Yeah.
And it becomes quite effective.
From the point of view
But there
of,
is something to be said for there is something to be said for the imperfections of worship, you know?
true enough, but from the point of view of a professional musician, when you practice to record to the in order to do a recording, you practice so you don't make mistakes. When you practice for a live stream thing, that'll be up there forever and ever. Amen. You practice so you can't make mistakes. So consequently, the stress level can go through the roof.
Yeah, yeah. Have you seen an Irish blessing? It's a sort of a Zoom kind of thing that they did in Ireland. 300 different counties came together and sang "Be Thou My Vision." And so it's an Irish blessing. It's on YouTube. It's well worth checking out.
Thank you.
And I'm just seeing one more question here. What kind of upload speed do you need for live streaming?
So I'll let you weigh in as well, John, but I know for us, you probably want, the key is actually upload speed, not download speed. And so, you know, the companies will always give you what the download speed on is, and that's not as important, but you need to be able to upload. And sometimes that's drastically low in a package. So you probably want at least 2 gigabytes up. What would you say, John? Would that be sufficient?
Yeah, I would say that's your minimum. And I agree.
Yeah.
When companies talk about download speeds, say, oh, we'll give you a 20 gigabyte download speed or megabytes. I'm not even sure which category it is, but then your upload is like 1. So you really need to make sure
that's not enough.
No, your package is probably 2 or more. And you can start with 2. And if you're having trouble, up it.
Yeah. Yeah. See, the problem with the upload speed with any bandwidth is that it fluctuates. So if you have a program that's sending out 700 kilobytes of data and you have a 1 megabyte upload speed, you think you're fine, except that 1 megabyte is going to spike up and down. And when it spikes down and goes too low, then you have a cut.
Yeah. And that's why too, it's best to have your direct connect, not doing it through Wi-Fi, because that adds one level of fluctuation.
Yeah.
Now, I promised to end recording at some point, so I'm going to stop it